Welcome back. This is the Pawn Sacrifice channel, and this is episode 5 of the 924S build, which is a VW Audi 1.8T engine swap. This episode I'm going to be finishing off something that I started before, which is the bell housing conversion. There's still a gap between the bell housing and the torque tube of about 25mm, which I need to close up, and to do that I need to build an adapter to bolt onto either side. So let's get on with it. I am going to use this block of aluminium and basically cut it and drill it through either side to try and make it so that one side bolts into the bell housing, and then the torque tube will just bolt in here. And I've also got, and I'm not entirely sure whether these are absolutely needed, but I need to try and figure out what I'm going to do with these. So the standard one has got the dowel pins in it, and I need to replicate those as well. So first thing I need to do to get started with this is actually get the plate off, and I need to find a template to get the exact centre of the hole so that I can get all my measuring done correctly. So any of you that saw any of the earlier episodes, this is a very familiar situation. The hole in the plate at the back currently is a bit bigger and off centre compared to the where the drive shaft's coming through. So what I've done is I've just drilled a 1-inch hole in this sheet of cards. So I'm going to put this onto here, move the engine back, and then I'm just going to duct tape that on so that I want to get it right. So I think that's probably the easiest way of going about doing it. Okay, bell housing's back off again, and this is the original adapter plate that I've put on it, expecting to just be bolting more steel stuff on. So first of all I need to get this removed. Now I've got the block. So one thing I do need to do, I'm going to be using this to mark out and have some lines which I need to be running parallel and vertical. I've checked around, and this is the only corner, because of the way that it's been cut, this is the only corner that's actually true to 90 degrees. So I'm just going to mark that off there so I know which one I'm working with. And then from this template, so I think that was square, and so I've got my lines now in terms of where I need to cut the block down. So now that's marked out, I need to find the centres, so I'll just use the same method as before to mark out all of these and then drill. Okay, so those are my holes. So just having a look here on this template, so that is 8mm hole, and I've just had a look. So this is the for the drill, for the adjustments of speeds, and for 8mm aluminium, I can see it wants to be at 2650. And having a look on the front of the drill here, and you can see it basically shows you where you need to put the belt to get that speed. So I'm just going to adjust that now. So the next phase is to drill the centre hole, which I'm going to actually do at 40mm, which is slightly bigger than I did the one in the steel. Hopefully I'm going to have less problems dealing with this than I did last time. This is a Silverline bimetal drill bit. It's all sort of nicely fitted together. Hopefully it's going to work okay. The only slight problem I've got, so similarly with the other drill bits, there's a recommended speed for using this, and I'm actually going to be, unfortunately, the lowest this goes is way above what this recommends. Not by a lot, but maybe 100 or 200 RPM. So I'm going to give that a try. Hopefully it's going to work okay. Otherwise, I'm going to have to think of another plan, and that's a lot of wasted aluminium. So, fingers crossed this works okay. Right, Jesus. So, plan B is to try one of the carbide bits that didn't really work very well the other day when I was doing something else, so hence me buying the other jobs. So let's see, and hopefully this will work. Right, that's clearly not going to work. I'm not very happy. So I guess the other thing I could try is have a go with the hand drill, put it on a low setting and just use the variable trigger to run it as slow as possible. Keep this clean and see how we go. The bits, it seems to be maybe working. Obviously the things keep getting clogged up, so I think it's just going to need a lot of patience in lieu of the right equipment. Do you know what, I've just remembered what the problem with this one was. It hasn't got the depth to go all the way through. So, damn it, I'm going to have to, that's slightly smaller. Hopefully that'll be easier now. So I'm going to try, god damn, switch back. You may still get to see me cry. Switch back to this one and try that again. Jesus. Right, okay, this is going to be really slow going by the looks of it. So I've put you through quite a lot of viewing already. I promise if I get to the point of breaking down in tears, I'll switch it back on. But otherwise, I'm just going to have to persist with this, and I think it's going to take me a while. Okay, so I did a lot of drilling with this until the battery gave up. I think probably left you guys about an hour ago, maybe. So I was drilling with that for quite a long time. I then thought I would give the press another go, and actually it's still not perfect, but it's making a lot quicker progress than the hand drill was. And the reason I'll switch back on is I think I'm quite close to victory. I'm almost through, I think. So with a bit of luck, not too much longer, and this should be free. Okay, at last, that is done. I am a bit annoyed it was such hard work. That's what I get for my troubles. And now we have a thing with a hole, which is very, very pleasing indeed. Okay, so I'm just going to tidy this up and then have a look at the next face. So I just had a go at cutting this with the saw, but it was too big and it didn't work, and basically caused this to come loose, buck, and hit it in the wrong place. So unfortunately now, I need to cut this with the abrasive disc, which is noisy and is going to make a mess, and that's the whole reason for getting this thing in the first place. Okay, so with this cut scrappily, made a mess, not happy, but it's done and everything's cleaned up. The biggest, besides the cutting, biggest hit was the fact that the T was not covered and has been compromised. So yeah, depending on where you're in the world, that's a big deal. Anyway, I now need to replicate this bolt pattern and also the locating dowels. I've been going round and round in circles on how to sort out the template for the bolts and locating dowels to get those onto the aluminium block. I've filmed about 5 different thoughts, and I'm probably not going to put you through all of that, but I seem to be getting somewhere. So where I did the mock-up on just on paper, just using a bit of geometry, and that's roughly worked. So the triangle's slightly off centre for the dowels, but the bolts in terms of the pins, in terms of where they go, they're all on there, absolutely spot on. That's great, and I've offered them up to the template or to the section that it's going to be bolting onto, and that fits great as well. My challenge now is to get this onto the block, onto the adapter plate, and get it into the right position. What I have done is put some silicone sealant on the back of that, and that's going to hold that in place. When that's done, the bolts are going to be removed, and there'll be a lot more sealant will go on this side, and that will then be pushed in with the adapter plate in place, and that'll stick there. So the plate's off and now attached with the spacer dash template to the drill, and that is all set up now, ready to go. And I've basically used a riv nut, which I've just hollowed through there to enable or basically just to line everything up nice and straight. So that's doing its job. When that's out, what I'll then do is go and grab the appropriate size drill bit, which is going to be an 8.5, and that's then for tapping out the M10 hole so that it will take one of these bolts. So the instructions here for the threading is quite straightforward. So it's just I want an M10 1.5, and then it just tells you what drill bit size you need, which is 8.5 mil, which is what I should have done with these holes, but I just got a bit excited and carried away and went and drilled 10 mil holes when I shouldn't have done. So I'm going to go and do each of these in turn and then offer it up and see how we're doing for space. So all of the 4 holes are drilled, and I've just removed the plate. The reason for that is these holes are going to need to be drilled out anyway. So yeah, so I wanted to get that done. So now on to getting the taps. Okay, so all the holes are tapped now. What I am going to do is just use the countersinker just to create a small bevel on the way in, just to make it a bit easier to locate the bolts. Yes, everything lines up just about, and there is still a little bit of play in there. Good, so that's actually fits, and so torque tube's now going to bolt straight onto the plate, which is amazing, and which the plate will then be obviously bolted to the back of the bell housing. And yeah, so that's genius. So now I just need to get in and work out where the pins need to go for the other bit, the locating dowels, and then we're away. This bit's a little bit more tricky. Against the original bell housing, that one and that one lined up. This one, as you can probably see, is well off centre. So I just need to use this now to punch the holes and then drill for the dowels. I've not shown the full drilling on this, but it's been done in several stages to get out to 10mm, and I'm using the height adjustment here basically to set it so that it just goes down to 20mm, which should leave 15 on the top. Right, this now fits everything to the car and then also to the engine, which is great, and I should probably leave it at that because it's nothing that anyone's going to see. But for reasons unknown, I can't, and I just want to tidy this up a bit, just get it a bit neater. I need to make space over here for the clutch slave, and then I also need to make space for the starter motor as well. So I've already traced out the line of roughly where it needs to be, and it was messy enough doing it just on a thinner sort of, I think, 3 or 4mm sheet. So what I'm going to do is actually use a drill to make holes around. Safe to say I've made a bit of a mess, but the holes are now drilled. This has probably taken me about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I'd say. So holes all the way around the outside, which means that they'll cut through a lot easier with the abrasive disc. This morning started with some more drilling, so I've drilled some bigger holes to make life easier with the cutting. This is the bit that I'm not looking forward to, but I've got a wide selection of cutting, flap and grinding discs to basically get this down and then shape it to something that is a little bit smoother around the edges. Right, so I've gone to fit up the plate, everything lined up nicely, and then I thought, oh, I'll just pop the starter motor in and the clutch just to check for clearance, and the starter motor doesn't fit. The reason being is that it's mounted upside down and the solenoid is now needing a hole in the plate. So I've marked this out, and I'm basically just going to have to go through the same procedure again of cutting it and getting it all sorted. Right, so following the same procedure as before, the cutout bit there was drilled, cut, ground and then flapped with the disc finally to smooth it off a little bit. And yeah, that's the end result, which I'm pretty pleased with. One thing which did occur to me as I've been moving this and the original plate around was actually it doesn't feel like there's a lot in them, given the weight, and so I popped them on the kitchen scales. The steel plate came in at 1 kilo and 60 grams, and the aluminium came in at 2 kilos and 130 grams. So, I mean, admittedly, there's a bit more of a cutout on this than the steel, but you can see once you start to multiply this out, this is a lot lighter. So yeah, very pleased with that. The other thing, having actually remembered what it was like to build this, well, say build it, to cut that up, is actually how much easier it is working with the aluminium. Both in terms of drilling, I think I would have struggled to get that hole through with the tools that I've got to get that through a similar sort of size plated steel, or even 2 bits which are half the height. So yeah, that all goes on quite nicely. Very pleased with how it's all come together, to be honest. Obviously I've checked, but just for confirmation, the starter motor now fits on there quite nicely, and I just need to work out how I'm going to secure the dowel pins in. But other than that, and some hardware to bolt everything down, that's another job done. So all in all, a good week's work. I need to now try and work out exactly what I'm going to do next. I've got a few different ideas about things that I want to do. At some point fairly soon, I'm going to need to tackle mounting the engine to the car. The cross member for the 924 sits forward of where the sort of centre point of the engine is, which is ideally where it'd be mounted. So the other option is I would have to weld something to the side of the car. I think that'd be a bit of a stretch for me at the moment, but I'm going to have a think about that and what I want to do there. So yeah, plenty of things still to do. What I'm filming next may depend on which bits turn up and when. It's shut down a bit for Christmas, but yeah, seem to be making reasonable progress. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.